Gloria stepped off the expensive car, her heart pounding as the heat of Lagos enveloped her. It was her first time back in Nigeria since she left with her mother 14 years ago. Now 15, Gloria barely knows anything about this country, and yet, there was a part of her excited to meet her father. Mr. George, her father, greeted them as they stepped down with open arms. His eyes were filled with emotion as he embraced his wife and daughter. It had been too long, and he couldn't believe how much his little one-year-old baby girl had grown. But as they settled in, something about Gloria's behavior disturbed him. She snapped at the driver, backed orders at the house staff, and rolled her eyes at everyone. Mr. George assumed it to be the stress from the long hours of the journey, hoping that after a few days, she would settle down. However, little did he know that this was only the beginning of something deeper. Days passed, and Gloria's behavior only worsened. She treated the domestic staff with disdain, refusing to say thank you and making bad remarks. When they visited restaurants or social gatherings, she was quick to criticize and look down on people. Mr. George, a man of grace and reputation, was embarrassed by his daughter's actions. He couldn't understand where this prideful, disrespectful attitude had come from. Gloria had been raised in the United States, yes, but that didn't justify such behavior. He decided to observe her more closely before making any moves. Mr. George spent many nights awake, thinking about his daughter. He realized that if something wasn't done soon, Gloria would grow into someone who disrespected others and tarnished the family's good name. Mr. George had built a life on treating people with kindness, no matter their background. He couldn't let his only child undo all of that. He spoke to his wife about Gloria's behavior, and though Mrs. George acknowledged it, she brushed it off, attributing it to teenage error. But Mr. George wasn't convinced. After much contemplation, Mr. George made a bold decision: Gloria would stay in Nigeria, even after the summer holiday, to learn the values she had clearly forgotten. He didn't discuss this plan with his wife, knowing she wouldn't approve immediately. Mrs. George had her own life and business back in the US, and while she loved her daughter, her focus was on other things. Mr. George, on the other hand, couldn't bear the thought of sending his daughter back to America with this attitude. He concluded to teach her respect and humility. When Mr. George informed Gloria that she would be staying in Nigeria for the next school year, she was angry. "You can't be serious, Dad," she screamed. Her mother tried to calm her down, but the fury in Gloria's eyes was unmatched. She felt betrayed, as if her parents were conspiring to ruin her life. She had friends back in the US, a life she loved, and now she was being forced to stay in a country she barely knew. Her anger toward her father grew, but Mr. George remained firm in his decision. He believed this was the only way to save her from herself. Mr. George enrolled Gloria at Georgina's College, a prestigious school in Lagos, without telling her that he owned the institution. He wanted her to experience life as a regular student, without the privileges that came with her background. Gloria, still angry at being left in Nigeria, found herself in a strange environment with students who didn't care about her American background. She was expected to follow the rules, wear the uniform, and treat everyone equally. Gloria despised it all, determined to return to the US as soon as possible. As Gloria attended her first classes at Georgina's College, she quickly realized she wasn't special here. No one was amazed over her American accent, and her expensive clothes didn't impress anyone. The students, many of whom were from wealthy families, didn't care for her attitude. And the worst part, Gloria had to deal with Emmanuel and Emanuela, two intelligent twins who sat at the top of the class but came from a poor background. They were polite to everyone, and their humility irritated Gloria. She didn't understand how they could be so content with their simple lives. Just when Gloria thought things couldn't get worse, she encountered the Triple H team: Hannah, Helen, and Hilda, three girls known for their bullying. They saw Gloria's arrogance as a challenge and wasted no time in making her life difficult. Then there were the Kojo twins, Jason and Jaden, who loved to humiliate anyone they saw as weak. Despite Gloria's wealth and attitude, she became an easy target. She was mocked, pushed around, and treated as if she were no different from the other students. For the first time in her life, Gloria felt powerless. Throughout all this, Emmanuel and Emanuela tried to become friends with Gloria. They saw her struggles and wanted to help, but Gloria, blinded by pride, pushed them away. She saw them as people beneath her, thinking that being friends with them would lower her status even more. She couldn't bear the thought of associating with people from poor backgrounds, and every time they approached her, she found a way to insult them. But as the bullying worsened, she began to realize that her arrogance was isolating her, leaving her with no one to turn to. Weeks passed, and Gloria struggled to get used to the life at Georgina's college. The luxurious life she had in the US felt like a distant memory, and her days were filled with humiliation and loneliness. Her father's plans seemed to be working, though she didn't know it yet. Slowly, Gloria started to pay attention to the way Emmanuel and Emanuela treated others. They never looked down on anyone, regardless of their background, and they always carried themselves with quiet dignity. It made Gloria question her own behavior, though she wasn't ready to admit it. One day, after a bad and harsh encounter with the Triple H team, Gloria found herself sitting alone in the school courtyard, tears streaming down her face. Emmanuel carefully approached her, offering a kind word. For the first time, Gloria didn't push him away. She didn't respond to his kindness either, but something inside her was beginning to shift. She realized that the respect and friendship she had been craving couldn't be forced or bought, it had to be earned. But Gloria still had a long way to go before she would fully embrace this lesson. As the weeks rolled by, Emmanuel and Emanuela continued to offer Gloria kindness, despite her cold attitude. One afternoon, Emanuela surprised Gloria by inviting her to join them for lunch. At first, Gloria hesitated. Her pride made her want to decline, but the loneliness she had been feeling weighed heavier. Without saying a word, she picked up her tray and followed them to a quiet corner of the school cafeteria. They ate in silence at first, but slowly, conversation flowed. Emmanuel spoke about their struggles, about how their parents worked tirelessly to keep them in school. Gloria curiously listened. Their humility was genuine, and for the first time, she realized how little she knew about other people's lives. Despite her growing friendship with Emmanuel and Emanuela, the bullying from the Triple H team and the Kojos increased. They couldn't stand seeing Gloria around the twins and took every opportunity to humiliate her. One day, the Triple H girls cornered her in the bathroom, making hurtful remarks about her and pushing her around. Gloria fought back tears, not wanting to give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. When Emmanuel found out, he wanted to confront them, but Gloria stopped him. She didn't want anyone fighting her battles for her. It was then she realized that she had to find a way to deal with the bullies on her own. One evening, after another hard day at school, Gloria found herself walking home with Emmanuel and Emanuela. They talked about everything, school, life in Nigeria, and even the differences between their words. Emmanuel, wise beyond his years, shared how he had learned to cope with the harsh realities of life with grace. "It's not about how much you have, Gloria," he said softly. "It's about how you treat people. You can have everything in the world, but if you don't have respect and kindness, you have nothing." Gloria felt a pang in her heart. She knew he was right, but changing the way she saw the world was going to be a long journey. Gloria's mother returned to Nigeria for a brief visit, and Gloria was happy. She believed that her mother would finally take her back to the US. However, Mrs. George noticed the little changes in her daughter's behavior and agreed with her husband's decision to leave her in Nigeria. This decision crushed Gloria's hope, and her anger flared again. She accused her parents of abandoning her and ruining her life. Despite her outburst, deep inside, Gloria knew she was changing, but she wasn't ready to admit it to anyone, especially herself. Mr. George watched these changes in Gloria with silent satisfaction. He could see the gradual shift in her behavior, especially towards the domestic staff. She was no longer barking orders at them or treating them as invisible. Though she wasn't fully there yet, the small improvements were enough for Mr. George to feel hopeful. He continued to stay silent about his ownership of Georgina's college, wanting her to learn these lessons on her own terms. However, he knew that the real test was yet to come. One day, Gloria witnessed something that changed her perspective even further. She saw Hannah, one of the Triple H girls, crying in the library. Curious, she eavesdropped and learned that Hannah was struggling at home, her parents were going through a bitter divorce, and she felt powerless. For the first time, Gloria saw her bully as more than just someone who tormented her. She saw a girl with vulnerabilities, just like everyone else. Gloria didn't approach Hannah, but this moment planted a seed of empathy in her heart. Maybe, she thought, people weren't always what they seemed. After seeing Hannah's vulnerability, Gloria began to treat her classmates differently. She wasn't fully transformed, but she started to listen more and speak less. She greeted the school staff with a nod, no longer treating them as if they didn't matter. Emmanuel and Emanuela noticed the shift and encouraged her. "You're doing great, Gloria," Emanuela said one day after class. "Just keep going." Gloria smiled, for once feeling a sense of pride that wasn't tied to her wealth or background. She was beginning to see people for who they were, not what they had. The bullying continued, but something inside Gloria had shifted. One day, when the Kojos tried to humiliate her in front of the class, she did something no one expected. Instead of fighting back with insults, she calmly walked away, refusing to give them the reaction they wanted. The class was surprised, and for the first time, the Kojo twins made themselves stupid in front of everyone. Gloria felt a great sense of victory, not because she had won, but because she had finally refused to let them control her. Emmanuel and Emanuela congratulated her, and for the first time, Gloria felt strong in a way she never had before. As Gloria continued to change, the way others treated her began to change as well. Her humility was noticed by the teachers, the students, and even the bullies. While the Triple H team and the Kojo still tried to get under her skin, their efforts became less effective. Gloria was no longer the arrogant, entitled girl they once knew. She was becoming someone new, someone stronger and kinder. Her father noticed the changes, and the domestic staff began to speak about her with respect. It was clear that the lessons Gloria was learning were sinking in, though the journey was far from over. By the second term, Gloria had embraced the challenges that came with her new life in Nigeria. Though the environment was still vastly different from what she was used to in the United States, she no longer resisted it. She found herself more engaged in conversations with Emmanuel and Emanuela, learning not just about Nigeria but also about the values of patience, respect, and resilience. She realized that the material wealth she once prized so highly couldn't buy the contentment and strength she saw in her new friends. Slowly but surely, Gloria was transforming. Emmanuel and Emanuela became more than just classmates to Gloria. They were her closest friends, the ones who guided her through her struggles with the bullies and helped her understand the culture she had once dismissed. The twins, in their own quiet way, had shown Gloria what true friendship looked like, one built on respect, trust, and care. They never asked for anything in return, and this selflessness was something Gloria was still learning to appreciate. Their friendship made school bearable for her, and for the first time, she felt like she truly belonged somewhere. Despite her growing humility, the bullying from the Kojos and the Triple H team continued. Gloria began to understand that no matter how kind she became, there would always be people who tried to tear her down. But now, instead of reacting with anger or pride, she handled the situations with grace. During one particularly wicked prank, where the Kojos humiliated her in front of the entire school immediately before the assembly, Gloria held her head high and refused to let them see her hurt. She later confided in Emmanuel and Emanuela, who reassured her that standing firm in her values was the greatest victory. One evening, Gloria received a call from one of her old friends in the United States. The call was filled with stories about parties, new experiences, and life in America, things that used to excite Gloria. But as she listened, she felt distant from it all. She realized that the Gloria her friend was gisting to no longer existed. The challenges in Nigeria had changed her in ways she never anticipated. Gloria bade goodbye to her friend and ended the call, realizing that returning to her old life might not be as appealing as it once was. Gloria's father, Mr. George, had been watching her closely and noticed her remarkable growth. However, he was not yet ready to reveal the truth about his ownership of Georgina's college. He knew that Gloria still needed to face some difficult issues, including her relationship with her past. He invited her to a dinner party where several of his business associates would be present, including people from her former social circles. Gloria, feeling out of place in her new identity, struggled with the duality of who she was before and who she was becoming. At the dinner party, Gloria found herself surrounded by wealth and prestige once again. People who once would have impressed her with their status and material possessions no longer had the same effect. She realized that the conversations felt shallow and meaningless compared to the rich discussions she had with Emmanuel and Emanuela. As she sat at the dinner table, Gloria felt a growing discomfort with the superficiality of her old life. This marked a turning point for her. She no longer sought validation from wealth or status, but from the values she was learning. As the weeks passed, the bullying from the Triple H team and the Kojos reached a peak. The bullying was no longer just about Gloria's background, it became about breaking her spirit. One afternoon, after enduring a particularly humiliating encounter, Gloria made a brave decision. Instead of suffering in silence, she stood up to the bullies. In front of the entire class, she calmly addressed the Triple H team and the Kojo twins, telling them that their wickedness was a reflection of their own insecurities, not her worth. The class watched surprisingly in silence as Gloria walked away, leaving the bullies speechless. Gloria's decision to confront the bullies brought about a new sense of confidence. Though the bullying didn't stop overnight, she felt empowered to face it head-on. Emmanuel and Emanuela were proud of her, and they continued to support her through the difficult days. Her father also noticed the change. He was proud that Gloria was finally starting to live by the values he had always tried to teach her. Though he hadn't yet revealed the truth about the school, he knew the time was approaching when she would learn the full extent of her journey. One afternoon, as Gloria was talking to Emmanuel and Emanuela after class, she overheard two teachers discussing her father's role in the school. Gloria's heart raced as she realized they were referring to Mr. George as the owner of Georgina's college. Confused and angry, she confronted her father that evening. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded. Mr. George calmly explained his reasons, telling her that he wanted her to learn humility and respect without the influence of wealth. At first, Gloria was furious, feeling deceived. But as the anger subsided, she began to understand why her father had kept this secret. After the revelation about her father's ownership of the school, Gloria struggled with her emotions. She felt betrayed but also grateful. She realized that without the lessons she had learned, she would have continued to live in a bubble of entitlement. Her father's decision, though painful, had given her a new perspective on life. Over time, Gloria came to accept her father's actions, understanding that they came from a place of love. She began to see her father in a new light, not just as a figure of authority, but as someone who had guided her toward becoming a better person. After her confrontation with her father, Gloria began to see the world differently. She understood now that the wealth and privilege she had taken for granted were not what defined her. Her father's secret had opened her eyes to the reality that true strength came from character, not status. The humility she had learned from Emmanuel and Emanuela, as well as the trials she had faced at Georgina's college, shaped her in ways that no amount of wealth could. Gloria realized that the respect she had gained from others was not because of her family name, but because she had earned it. As Gloria continued to change, her relationship with her father deepened. Mr. George, who had once been a distant figure in her life, became someone she looked up to and respected. They began spending more time together, discussing not only her experiences at school but also the values he held dear: integrity, humility, and kindness. Gloria's anger towards her father slowly melted away, replaced by admiration for the man who had orchestrated this transformation. Though she still missed her mother and the life she left behind in the US, she began to appreciate the lessons her father had taught her. Back at Georgina's college, the news of Gloria's connection to the school's owner spread like wildfire. The students and teachers were shocked, and many who had once treated her as an outsider began to approach her with newfound respect. But to everyone's surprise, Gloria didn't use this new information to her advantage. She continued to carry herself with the same humility and grace she had developed over the past months. This further earned her the respect of her peers and teachers, who now saw her not just as a rich girl, but as a student with character and integrity. Gloria's friendship with Emmanuel and Emanuela only grew stronger after the revelation of her father's ownership of the school. The twins never treated her any differently, even when others began to see her as someone special. This meant the world to Gloria. They had been her friends when she was at her lowest, and their influence on her life was profound. They continued to teach her the value of humility, hard work, and kindness, lessons that Gloria now embraced fully. She realized that her friendship with them had become one of the most important relationships in her life. The Kojo twins and the Triple H girls, who had once made Gloria's life a living hell, found themselves at a loss. The power they had once used over her was gone. Gloria, with her newfound confidence and strength, was no longer an easy target. One day, after another failed attempt to humiliate her, Gloria did something unexpected. She approached the bullies with kindness. She offered them forgiveness, telling them that their actions no longer hurt her. This disarmed them completely, and for the first time, the bullies were speechless. Though they didn't become friends, they stopped targeting her, unable to break her spirit anymore. As the time progressed, Gloria's mother returned for another visit. Mrs. George was amazed by the changes she saw in her daughter. Gloria was no longer the entitled, arrogant teenager she had been when she first arrived in Nigeria. She was more respectful, kinder, and more mature. Mrs. George couldn't believe the transformation. During a quiet moment, Gloria confided in her mother about everything she had gone through, the bullying, her struggles, and her eventual acceptance of her new life. Mrs. George was deeply moved and, for the first time, felt that perhaps leaving Gloria in Nigeria had been the right decision after all. Gloria and her mother shared a long conversation about the changes in her life. Gloria admitted that, at first, she had hated her father for making her stay in Nigeria. But now, she understood why he had done it. She explained how Emmanuel and Emanuela had helped her see the world through different eyes and how the lessons she learned at Georgina's college had shaped her into a better person. Mrs. George listened quietly, her heart swelling with pride for her daughter. She realized that the girl sitting before her was no longer the spoiled child she had left behind but a young woman with depth and maturity. As the second term came to a close, Gloria reflected on how far she had come. The once difficult experience of being left in Nigeria had turned into a journey of growth and self-discovery. She was no longer desperate to return to the United States. In fact, she wasn't sure if she even wanted to leave anymore. Nigeria had become more than just her father's home, it had become her home too. The friendships she had made and the lessons she had learned were things she could never have experienced anywhere else. Gloria felt a sense of peace as she prepared for the next stage of her journey. As the school year drew to a close, the time came for the term's graduation ceremony, where some students would be promoted and some given a send-off. Gloria and her classmates, on the other hand, would be promoted from SS2 to SS3, the final year of secondary school. The entire school gathered for the event, and to everyone's surprise, Mr. George took the stage to make a special announcement. He introduced Gloria as his daughter. It was a great shock to the students and teachers who hadn't heard the rumors before. The room buzzed with whispers as Mr. George spoke proudly about his daughter's growth and transformation. Gloria stood tall, no longer the girl who cared about what others thought but someone proud of the journey she had taken. The announcement of Gloria's identity caused a stir throughout the school. Many students who had previously ignored or mistreated her now wanted to be her friend, and some teachers who had been harder on her began to treat her differently. But Gloria, having learned the value of genuine relationships, was not swayed by the sudden change in behavior. She remained close to Emmanuel and Emanuela, who had been her friends from the beginning. Gloria knew that true friendship wasn't based on status or wealth, it was built on mutual respect and care, something she had finally come to understand. Now she has completed her one-year school session. Her father told her to stay in Nigeria. With her father's revelation behind her, Gloria was faced with a choice, whether to return to the United States or continue her education in Nigeria. Her mother, who had initially been eager to take her back, now left the decision in Gloria's hands. Gloria struggled with the decision. A part of her missed the US, but another part of her had grown to love her life in Nigeria. The experiences, friendships, and lessons she had learned here had shaped her in ways she couldn't ignore. After much reflection, Gloria made her decision. She would stay in Nigeria to complete her education. As Gloria entered her final year of secondary school, she felt a sense of excitement and anticipation. This year would mark everything she had learned, both academically and personally. She approached her studies with a newfound sense of purpose, determined to excel not just for herself but to honor the growth she had experienced. Her relationship with her father deepened, and she continued to cherish the friendship she had with Emmanuel and Emanuela. This final year would be a test of everything she had learned, and Gloria was ready to face it head-on. The final year of secondary school, SS3, brought new challenges for Gloria. The academic pressure increased, as this year would determine her future university prospects. But unlike the past, where she might have relied on her family's influence, Gloria was determined to succeed on her own merit. Emmanuel and Emanuela, always the diligent students, helped her with subjects she struggled in. Together, they studied late into the night, preparing for the exams that would shape their futures. Gloria's newfound dedication surprised her teachers, who noticed the shift in her attitude and praised her for her hard work. As the final year progressed, thoughts of the future weighed heavily on Gloria's mind. The question of whether she would stay in Nigeria for university or return to the United States lingered. Her father, Mr. George, left the decision entirely to her, trusting that she would make the right choice. Emmanuel and Emanuela, who both dreamed of attending prestigious universities, encouraged her to think carefully about her next steps. For the first time, Gloria wasn't concerned about what her peers or society expected of her. She was focused on what she truly wanted for herself. Despite her growth, Gloria occasionally found herself slipping into old habits. There were moments of frustration when she caught herself judging others or feeling superior. However, the difference now was that Gloria was self-aware. She recognized these thoughts and worked hard to correct them, often reminding herself of the lessons she had learned from Emanuela, and her father. She was not perfect, but she was determined to continue growing. Each day was an opportunity to become a better version of herself, and that mindset kept her grounded. Though the Kojo twins and the Triple H team had backed off after Gloria's confrontation, they occasionally tried to reignite their bullying. One afternoon, Jaden Kojo made a shameful remark about Emmanuel and Emanuela, mocking their financial status. Gloria, who had once silently accepted such remarks, was now quick to defend her friends. She stood up to the Kojo twins, firmly telling them that their bully wouldn't be tolerated anymore. Her confidence and conviction left the bullies with no choice but to back down. The rest of the school watched in awe as Gloria continued to stand up for what was right. One day, Gloria encountered a new student at Georgina's college, a girl named Laura, who had recently transferred from a smaller school. Laura was shy and struggled to fit in, much like Gloria had when she first arrived. Remembering her own experiences, Gloria reached out to Laura, offering her friendship and support. The two quickly became close, and Gloria found herself mentoring the new student, helping her navigate the social dynamics of the school. Laura's gratitude reminded Gloria of how far she had come and how important it was to pass on the kindness she had received. As the year progressed, Gloria's hard work began to pay off. She excelled in her studies, surprising both her classmates and teachers. The once arrogant girl who had relied on her father's wealth was now standing on her own academic achievements. Gloria's success was a testament to her growth, and it filled her with a sense of pride and accomplishment. Emmanuel and Emanuela were amazed to see their friend thriving, and together, the trio celebrated their academic victories, knowing that they had supported one another throughout the journey. The final SS3 exams were fast approaching, and the pressure was increased. Gloria, Emmanuel, and Emanuela spent every spare moment preparing for the test that would determine their future university placements. Gloria, who had once been indifferent to her studies, was now fully committed to doing her best. The night before the exams, the three friends sat together, reflecting on how much they had grown over the past year. For Gloria, this was more than just an academic test, it was a test of her journey of self-discovery and transformation. On the first day of the SS3 exams, the atmosphere at Georgina's college was tense. Students were nervous, knowing that their results would shape their future prospects. Gloria, while feeling the pressure, approached the exams with confidence. She knew she had worked hard, and for the first time, she wasn't relying on her family's influence to succeed. Emmanuel and Emanuela were equally prepared, and the three of them entered the exam hall with determination. As Gloria sat down to take her exam, she felt a sense of calm, knowing that no matter the outcome, she had given it her all. Once the exams were over, Gloria felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. The hard part was behind her, but now she had to wait for the results. In the meantime, she spent her days reflecting on her journey and spending time with Emmanuel and Emanuela. The three friends talked about their future plans. Emmanuel wanted to study engineering, while Emanuela aspired to become a doctor. Gloria, who had once been unsure about her path, began to consider studying something that would allow her to give back to the community, inspired by the lessons she had learned in Nigeria. As graduation day approached, the students of Georgina's college prepared for the ceremony that would mark the end of their secondary school journey. For Gloria, the graduation was more than just a celebration of academic achievement, it was a symbol of her personal transformation. She had entered the school as a spoiled, entitled girl, and she was living as someone who valued kindness, humility, and hard work. Her father, who had guided her through this journey, was immensely proud of her, and her mother, who had flown in from the United States for the ceremony, was eager to see the changes in her daughter. On the day of the graduation ceremony, the entire school gathered to celebrate the achievements of the graduating class. Gloria, dressed in her graduation gown, felt a swell of pride as she looked around at her classmates. Her father, Mr. George, took the stage to deliver a speech, and as he spoke about the importance of character and humility, Gloria felt as though his words were meant for her. When it was time for her to receive her awards and results, Gloria walked across the stage with her head held high, knowing that she had earned this moment through her hard work and determination. After the graduation ceremony, Mr. George gathered the students and staff for a special announcement. To everyone's surprise, he revealed that he would be awarding full scholarships to 2 students who had shown exceptional character and academic achievement. As the crowd murmured in anticipation, Mr. George called Emmanuel and Emanuela to the stage. The twins, who had worked so hard despite their financial struggles, were overwhelmed with gratitude. Gloria, watching from the audience, felt a deep sense of pride for her friends. They had supported her through her journey, and now it was their time to shine. After the graduation, Gloria's mother hosted a small celebration at their home, inviting some of Gloria's old friends from the United States who had flown in for the occasion. As Gloria reunited with her old friends, she realized how much she had changed. The conversations, once focused on material things and superficial achievements, now felt empty to her. Gloria found herself talking more about her experiences in Nigeria, the lessons she had learned, and the value of humility and kindness. Her old friends, though surprised by the changes in her, respected her growth and were curious about the journey she had been on. With graduation behind her, Gloria had to make a final decision about her future. Would she return to the United States for university, or would she stay in Nigeria? After much reflection, Gloria made the decision to stay in Nigeria for her higher education. She realized that her journey in this country wasn't over yet. There was still so much to learn and experience, and she wanted to continue growing as a person. Her parents, though surprised, supported her decision wholeheartedly, knowing that Gloria was now making choices based on her own values and desires, rather than societal expectations. With her decision to stay in Nigeria for university, Gloria began the process of applying to federal institution. She was determined to pursue a degree that aligned with her newfound values, something that would allow her to give back to society. After much consideration, she decided to study education in counseling, inspired by her experiences at Georgina's college and her friendships with Emmanuel and Emanuela. Gloria wanted to help people who, like her, had struggled with identity, humility, and societal pressures. Her parents supported her choice, proud of the path she was choosing to follow. As her friends prepared to move on to their next chapters, Gloria felt a bittersweet mixture of excitement and sadness. Emmanuel and Emanuela had been accepted into prestigious universities on their scholarships, and though they were staying in Nigeria, they would no longer be attending the same school. They promised to keep in touch and visit often, but Gloria knew things would never be quite the same. Still, she was excited for what lay ahead. University represented a new beginning, a chance to apply everything she had learned and continue growing into the person she was becoming. Gloria's journey at university began with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Unlike secondary school, where she had been shaped by the need to blend in and learn humility, university offered her a chance to fully embrace who she had become. Gloria thrived in her counseling program, passionate about making a difference in people's lives. Her studies were demanding, but she was determined to excel. She quickly became known for her leadership skills, compassion, and dedication to her coursework. Emmanuel and Emanuela, still her closest friends, were also excelling in their fields, and their bond remained strong even as they followed different paths. As Gloria grew more confident in her abilities and purpose, her relationship with her father deepened. Mr. George, proud of the changes he saw in his daughter, began involving her in his business operations during her holidays. Gloria showed an incredible knack for management, taking on more responsibilities within her father's companies. With each passing holiday, she impressed him with her ability to handle challenges, make sound decisions, and lead with integrity. Mr. George had always hoped for a son to continue his legacy, but seeing the way Gloria had matured and handled everything with grace and intelligence, he realized his daughter was more than capable of carrying the family legacy forward. 4 years passed quickly, and Gloria found herself standing at the threshold of yet another significant milestone, her university graduation. She had not only excelled academically, but her work with communities during her internships had gained recognition. As she stood at the graduation ceremony, looking at her proud parents in the audience, Gloria felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Her father's eyes gleamed with pride, and her mother, now fully supportive of the woman Gloria had become, couldn't contain her tears of joy. The once rebellious girl had transformed into a responsible, compassionate, and intelligent young woman. After Gloria's graduation, her mother made an important decision of her own. She was returning to Nigeria for good. The years of living apart had taken their toll, and Mrs. George realized that her place was now with her family. With Gloria's father slowing down and gradually stepping back from the day-to-day management of the family businesses, Mrs. George wanted to support her daughter and husband in this new chapter. The return was a joyous reunion for the family, and together, they began planning the future, united in a way they hadn't been for years. At 23, with her degree in hand and her family by her side, Gloria stepped into a new role as a key figure in her father's businesses. At first, she was met with double mind from some of the senior staff, who were used to dealing with Mr. George and doubted that a young woman could handle the complexities of the enterprise. But Gloria quickly proved them wrong. Her sharp mind, combined with the empathy and leadership skills she had developed over the years, made her a natural fit. She handled everything with professionalism, gaining the respect of everyone around her. As the months passed, Mr. George watched with satisfaction as his daughter skillfully managed the company's affairs. She expanded the business, introduced innovative practices, and built strong relationships with clients and employees alike. Mr. George, now in his late 50s, felt a sense of peace knowing that he could finally relax, confident that his daughter was more than capable of carrying on his legacy. What had started as a tough decision to keep Gloria in Nigeria had turned out to be one of the best choices he had ever made. She was not only his pride and joy but the leader he had always hoped she would become. With Gloria taking on more responsibilities, Mr. George found himself with time he had never had before. He and Mrs. George began to travel more, reconnecting as a couple after years of focusing on work and raising their daughter. They visited places they had always wanted to see and spent more time with friends and family. Mr. George felt a great sense of fulfillment, knowing that his daughter was successfully running the empire he had built. He marveled at how Gloria had surpassed all his expectations, handling everything with a calm confidence that left him in awe. Gloria continued to lead the business with distinction, but her leadership wasn't just about profit and expansion. She introduced community-focused programs, ensuring that the company's success translated into meaningful contributions to society. Inspired by her degree in counseling and social work, she set up initiatives to support education and health in some communities across Nigeria. Her vision for the business was not just about maintaining her father's legacy but about using their influence and resources to create positive change. Under her leadership, the company succeeded, not only financially but also in terms of its reputation and social impact. One evening, as Mr. George sat on the sofa in their family living room, he reflected on the journey his daughter had taken. He remembered the difficult decision to make Gloria stay in Nigeria, and how much she had hated him for it at the time. But now, seeing the woman she had become, strong, compassionate, and capable, he knew he had made the right decision. Gloria had exceeded his wildest dreams. She was not just an heir to his business empire, she was a force to be reckoned with, a leader that any father would be proud to have raised. He smiled to himself, deeply satisfied. Years later, Gloria's influence on the business world and her community was undeniable. She had not only upheld her father's legacy but had built upon it, creating a lasting impact that would be felt for generations. Mr. George, now fully retired, lived in peaceful contentment, knowing that his daughter was the perfect embodiment of everything he had worked for. One daughter, better than 10 sons, he often said, a phrase that became well known among his peers. Gloria had proven that strength, wisdom, and leadership had nothing to do with gender and everything to do with character. As Mr. George watched Gloria lead the business with grace, humility, and intelligence, he knew that his legacy was in the best possible hands. The decision to keep Gloria in Nigeria had been difficult, but as he looked at his family, his wife by his side, his daughter continuing to shine, he couldn't help but feel a profound sense of pride. Gloria had become everything he had hoped for and more, and as she continued to lead, he knew his legacy would endure through her, stronger than ever. The story of Gloria George had come full circle, a tale of growth, transformation, and the power of love and leadership that supersedes any challenge. She was more than her father's legacy, she was her own person, a leader for her time and the future. And for Mr. George, that was more than he could ever have asked for. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comment section, like and subscribe for more interesting and educating stories like this.